Hello, how are you? It's Craig here at Flooded, and another video, this time a little bit about what on earth is going on at the BBC. BBC Radio in particular. I've been alerted to conversation going on Twitter and Facebook because people are not happy. There is a cutting back of radio drama, it seems. And I also heard that for the last year or so, a popular radio show, The Archers, has been siding with the idea of monologues from the characters or something. Don't know anything about that, but I was just listening to the controller of Radio 4. His name is Mohit Bakaya. Mohit Bakaya, I believe. And he was saying that there have been monologues from the characters, and it got me thinking about it. The way you know that way Netflix does, like when it does shows, it'll just like have characters in very limited locations, very limited extras, and just keep everything very contained and small, so it's cheaper and controllable, and you can do it faster. The Archers, apparently they've been monologues, so it's like a character talking for ages to pad out the time. A lot cheaper just to have somebody talking at a microphone than a whole cast and editing. But I believe it's going to return to normal. So where am I getting all this from? Well, I'm getting it from this tweet here from Caroline Raphael. She runs a company called Dora Productions, an audio production company. She's a lecturer at St. Martin's in dramatic writing, and she used to work at BBC Radio. She posted this thing on Facebook. I won't read it all, but the general gist of it, I'll read some of it. Well, it's the announcement of BBC Radio 4's Women's Hour. As a former head of radio drama, I need to say something. This is the first public acknowledgement in a very underhand way, if you know the Radio 4 schedules, that the 15-minute drama is being cut. Or is that 15-foot drama? Hold on. All right. I thought I had a sound effect for that. As one of the team who introduced this slot in 1998, it's sad to see it go. Well, of course. If you're the person who introduced it, you're probably the worst person to go to get feedback about it, because obviously you're not going to be very happy about it. But schedules change, and they should change. Actually more regularly than they do. Okay, so she's talking about changing schedules, but she's saying there's this cut. There's the public service institution. It has, I believe, a responsibility to support the arts, to be a cultural patron. I agree with that. I don't know if it necessarily has to be on, as long as the BBC does it. I think we're covered. I don't know if it always has to be in the radio. And I think dramatic changes need to happen anyway with BBC. By the way, I'm not one of these defund the BBC persons. I'm not a fan of the BBC as it stands, but I am like ex-BBC, and I want it reforming back to where it was when I worked there, which was, it was sound, it was great. Everyone was producer guidelines, everyone, it was like a Bible. I haven't got my copy with me, but it was a Bible. You had it with you all the time, and you referred to it. It was actually a book you carried like a Bible. And it was called the Bible, Producer's Bible. But that kind of being abandoned a little bit. It's all online. Nobody bothers looking anymore. It says here, as a public service institution, this cut is alongside reduction in hours of the afternoon drama. Actual slots will decrease in slot duration and move away towards a series. And in what was the Saturday play, which is now only 12 a year. Okay, well, she goes into the details of it. They're cutting back on drama. And it's been noticed, and everyone's wondering why. And they're extending shows that are cheaper to make, like the Today Show. or Woman's Hour. It will be cheap. Dramas will be more expensive, just because it's editing and it's time consuming to do, and the sound effects, and the whole thing will be it's a lot harder than having a bunch of people sat around a desk with microphones just talking about stuff that's going on. Interviews, stuff like that is easier to do. So if they're extending Women's Hour, maybe they're extending the Today Show, and they're just basically trying to, it's getting much more podcasty. I don't really have a massive problem with that. In a way, there are other things you could lose and maybe make them into, like, I think a BBC drama radio station all on its own would be a good thing, because Radio Drama introduced me to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And that took me down a right old rabbit hole, that did. I was going to plays to do with it. I met Douglas Adams, interviewed him twice, because I seeked him out and I interviewed him. And for personal stuff, though, right? This is all just me. Yeah, it was great. And it was something that I didn't get from the records. I got it, or from the books. It was something about listening to it in your head, having it in the space in your head was just fantastic. Really, really loved it. So anyway, she tweets that out, and then Neil Gaiman. Oh, where has it gone? Neil Gaiman picked up on it. He said, Radio Drama for BBC Radio 4 has been cut and trimmed and eliminated just as audio drama becomes an international mainstream success story, and a place where the BBC really excels. So disappointing. He's sort of saying, like, this is something that we should be looking at. And he's right. People are turning to audiobooks. Audiobooks are doing amazing right now. I messaged him to say, hi, Neil. Is there any stronger evidence the BBC is doing this as part of a policy initiative? What's their plan? Who's pushing this? This is me making a general inquiry. Neil Gaiman replied, it's not a policy thing, it's a budget thing. He replied like this, it's not a policy thing, it's a budget thing. Drama costs money. That's exactly how he sounds. And I replied with some information I'm going to share with you in a minute. Who's Neil Gaiman, you might be asking? If you are, shame on you. Ask him there. He's a homeless man. He writes... he's written a few books, a few films. He wrote Coraline, Beowulf, Stardust. Some of this stuff I don't know. He's written comics, look. Exciting. And he's also written some TV shows. American Gods, Babylon 5 episode, Doctor Who episode, The Simpsons episode. What a god. The man's awesome. So he's annoyed about all this. So I started thinking about, well, what are the actual numbers around BBC Radio? Before we get into what they're doing and what their plan is, who's actually watching it? And this is where I went down a right old rabbit hole, I've got to tell you. First of all, by the way, I just dipped into this here. How much do people get paid? Look at this. Look what people get paid here. Look at this. Original drama per minute, beginner's rate, £67 for every minute. That's if you've got 2 TXs, 2 transmissions. £40 for 1 transmission. But if you're like known, if you're not one of these low-life beginners that we want to encourage, if you want somebody who like is, you get your work broadcast all the time, you get £100 a minute. If it's 2 TXs. Attendance payment £73. I would insist that if you're going to put my radio script on your radio show, I'm getting in a taxi and I'm coming down to watch you do it, so I can claim my £73 attendance payment. So I had a look to find out about Mohit. I've got to forget his name right. I'll see it when I see it. Mohit Bakaya, that's it. Mohit Bakaya, controller of Radio 4. And he wrote this, I think, from his bedroom. He's going on about... Another year over and another just commissioning round. Except, of course, it's not really like any other year. We go into this round in the midst of blah, blah, blah. There's been horrible deaths, dramatic, altered our everyday lives, da-da-da. Then there is the very different, but some might argue equally disruptive in relation to democracy, at least, impact of social media. It's a forum that can... A lot of the impact of social media is people who work for the BBC saying stuff we don't like, annoying us, putting us off watching your shows and listening to your radio shows because they're getting all like that. They're getting all like that on the old social medias. I think it goes on with climate change for some reason. He's kind of like an assumption that a lot of people care about a lot of this stuff, and a lot of people don't. For me, it feels he's out of touch with just everyday people. Very much in touch with like the city elites. How do we capture in a clever, original way? Crucially, how will your ideas complement what Radio 4 will be doing through its live and regular output this year? After a year when we've gone through a collective trauma, we haven't all gone through the same trauma. Finding different ways to explore the aftermath is going to be a challenge. I can assure you that once this is all sorted and everyone's had their jabs, the last thing they're going to want to do is talk about it or listen to radio shows talking about it. We want to move on. It's like Brexit. How can we bring the audience together more? How patronising. We don't want to be... We're fine. Thank you. Thank you. Don't bring us together. We're fine. We're all together. We're chilling out. We're having a good time. We want you to entertain us with your radio dramas and your plays. We don't want to hear your opinions on social media from your staff. We don't want to hear your biased decisions about who gets interviewed, who doesn't get interviewed, what you cover, what you don't cover, what music gets played at the proms and what music doesn't get played at the proms. Oh no, we're not going to play that because it's a very good point that all the activists are making, isn't it? Activists are making a very good point about that, about the past. Britain's past is terrible. Have you heard about it? It's not what people want to hear, and that's not being in touch, and it's not reflecting how people think. You're basically saying that you lot are all bad, you listeners, you customers, you people are paying us to tell you. That's the weird thing, isn't it? That the public, the British public, are paying the BBC. BBC are taking the money and making out that the people are bad. It's so weird. How can we bring the audience together so their understanding of the plight of others improves? And the unequal impact of COVID is probably felt. They want to teach us to be compassionate. Good almighty. Is this guy British? He's like, he doesn't even know. I mean, it's how we are. British people are very compassionate. Where, as a result of staring so intensely at one story, has our collective gaze not fallen? How can we delight? Well, where's your collective gaze hasn't fallen in the writing of this commissioning brief? Which is what this is, by the way. This is what he is telling people to make shows about. This is the BBC commissioning brief for BBC Radio. Can we delight, engage, and transport our audiences after such a grueling year? What is brewing out there? Oh, God, I just don't want it. Do you want it? Do you want this? I know. What is brewing out there that we might be able to smell but not yet hear or see? What? It's clever wording. What are the dots that need joining up for the audience to identify? We really are dumb, aren't we? We are the dumbest listeners, and people. I mean, license players are dumb, clearly, because he's telling us we are. We need help to understand stuff. There are some questions I'd love you to explore. Just tell us to explore. Tell people to explore them. Don't say you'd love people if they have to do it to get a commission. Don't say. There are some questions I'd love you to explore. Don't say that. Say you have to do this if you want to get a commission. Everyone's so walking on eggshells with everybody at the BBC. And that does not reflect how people are in the UK. People aren't delicate little lovelies. I'm not. I drink coffee strength 6. I'll have you know. Anyway, I'm labouring that a little bit. So he tells people what to do. What's this here? This is the Times. I read. You see, I've done all the research. I've been reading all about him and what he's saying and stuff. And then I fell. I met this person here. This is Sarah Sands. She used to be the editor of the BBC Today programme, which, if you don't know, is the flagship BBC Radio 4 news and current affairs show. It's on breakfast. It's what you wake up to in the UK if you are a little bit more cerebral, if you're a little bit smart. You know, it's not Radio 1, Wham. It's Sarah Sands' team making interesting, you know, articles, news stories, everything that's going on. She quit. She said, I've had enough. And she left because the BBC started doing cutbacks in news. They started sacking some journalists and then probably hiring them back on a freelance basis at 3 times the price. And she started getting, so I don't know if it was like a political move by her or she just felt that she was having the rug pulled from under her feet. I do not know at all. But I thought this was very interesting because she says, starting here, everybody, because Mohit has made me understand that you're a bit dumb and you need me to explain it to you slowly. So I'll go through it slowly for you. The BBC is not, this is what she says, this is what Sarah Sands says, editor of Today Show. The BBC is not just a broadcaster, but also an attentive employer in the age of the employee activist. The employee activist. This is what I've been saying for a long, long time. You know, when people talk about community, the such and such community, what they mean is the people in that community who are activists, I think. Because, you know, I'm trying to think what communities I'm part of. I just think I'm part of the community of Great Britain. And, you know, I think, you know, I'll get into it. The BBC is not just a broadcaster, but also an attentive employee in an age of the employee activist. Totally true. The result is a sense of entitlement among young employees. They expect to have their view of the world on air. Now, there's a truth in that, because when I worked at the BBC, I was doing some shows I did, I did one about a deaf sailor, a deaf sailor who sailed around the world, and he had issues because he was with a group of disabled other sailors, and everyone was getting help with their disability. They're supposed to pull together as a team. Because he was deaf, nobody was using sign language for him. And I started doing this. I really got into it, like, I'm going to educate the whole country about the problems that deaf people have. You know, I really got into it. And I did feel like I was going to teach you idiots about something I know something about. So you do get a little bit of you can become a bit of an activist, but I think that's a danger, and you shouldn't. It's very difficult to be sort of like a centrist around stuff, around political issues. Well, it's not difficult, actually. But what happens when you are is people think, oh, you've got no compassion towards things, and in a way, it's kind of. It's not true, but what you don't show that you have compassion amongst things, because when people demonstrate that they have compassion you demonstrate it by actions. You don't demonstrate it by tears or oh no, or I'll tweet that out, or oh that's terrible, or you know, really sort of dramatized reactions. That's not that's virtue signaling, as they call it, isn't it? That's not actually being a compassionate person just by going, oh, I'm so sorry, yeah, that happened to you. That's not being a compassionate person. That's just been somebody performing compassion. I'm very pleased with how I put that in the end. Anyway, so the result is a sense of entitlement amongst young employers. They expect to have the view of the world on air. In its drive to reflect a new world, the BBC sometimes overlooks an older one. It can treat social conservatism with polite incomprehension. And this is a theme that we sort of see. Now, I've got to wheel this back here because she was interviewed.
Counter the uncomfortable.
Here we go.
Diversity.
Here we go.
us, and I think there's some
cognitive diversity.
I would like to ask about what's Sunday Times.
If Radio 4 is anything,
Hold on, sorry
Radio
about
4
this.
is a place where you encounter the uncomfortable, the unknown, the wondrous, the unexpected, views and beliefs that, are not ones that you hold, but you need to try and understand what other people think. I am really passionate about, and I think it's this.
Plaid Cymru and or DUP.
For has to.
Sarah Sands, the outgoing editor of the Today
Here we
program,
go. I'm sorry you had to sit through me.
BBC, I would say.
Here she goes. This is Sarah Sands.
Range of people with
this is Sarah Sands' question.
A range of views and political opinions, so that not that they can just shout at each other, so they can try and understand better each other's perspective. I'm a great believer in truth coming out of a Socratic dialogue.
On our programme last month, Sarah Sands, the outgoing editor of the Today programme, told us this.
The only thing about the BBC, I would say, having observed it as an outsider probably over the 3 years, is there is a great impulse towards sort of social cohesion, and sometimes it means that they think it would be unkind to hear certain views.
On the one hand, the BBC at a time of crisis is expected to unify the nation. On the other hand, it's expected and should be reflecting all sorts of views and opinions. And on top of that, there sometimes is an oversensitivity, many would say, in dealing with certain issues, notably those of racial diversity. Do you agree with Sarah Sands that sometimes people feel it would be unkind to hear certain views?
It's not a characterisation I recognise, particularly around Radio 4. I think any organisation of the size the BBC is always going to have to wrestle with the possibility that people start to cohere around a particular set of thoughts or opinions. And that is not unique to the BBC. One of the things we do, and certainly I did as a commissioning editor, and I hope I'm trying to do as controller, is to commission documentaries which very, very deliberately challenge received opinion and come from a range of viewpoints. And we will continue to fight the idea of groupthink, or the idea of, as Sarah calls it, kind of a social cohesion all the time, because that is the lifeblood of Radio 4, which is that diversity, which is that range of opinion and range of experiences which allow us to understand better the society we live in.
So that's key. Will they do it? Who knows? They should do it. They need to embrace diversity of ideas as well as all other diversities. And that is a good thing. That doesn't mean, by the way, by patronising people, by saying, by giving people jobs, not based on, as Martin Luther King put it, the content of their character, but giving jobs by the colour of their skin or because they come from a certain minority. That's not going to cut it. That won't work, because what will happen is people will start working inside teams, and all the other teams will. Whereas if you had like a hidden bias before or a hidden prejudice before, you're going to have a new one now, because everyone's going to be walking around thinking that team member got on not because of their skills and abilities, but for other reasons. And they'll walk, and the teams will be walking around not saying it. It'll be all pushed underneath, and that's going to be a huge problem. And if, as Sarah Sands says, that there are a lot of young people working at the BBC who all are activists, essentially, and I've seen it. You can't be an activist and a journalist. I've always argued this. And if you are a journalist, if you are an activist, then you can't change an activist's mind, because they are driven to one set of ideas. I don't think there can be any such thing as a centrist activist. If an activist is either on the left or on the right, and usually quite far out on either the left or the right. And if that's what the BBC is employing and putting in place, they're saying, I want to do something to show all those right-wing YouTubers. I want to expose them for the Yahtzees that they are. That's a problem, because that shouldn't be your motivation. Your motivation should be exploring what's going on over there with those YouTubers, not that you want to expose them for something, because it just bats backwards and forwards. Everyone starts fighting. Before you know it, you've got BBC staff retweeting biased stuff and stuff that's ill-informed and stuff that's dividing people. And that's why when Tim Davie came along, the new Director General, and he started trying to get people off sharing their opinions on social media, because if you put in your profile, in your biog, that the opinions are your own and not necessarily those of your employers, you're pretty dumb to do that or to believe that, because of course the opinions are reflected as, as if everybody at the BBC started saying, oh, remember next week, vote Labour, of course that's going to reflect the employer. The BBC are employing bunches of activists who are trying to, who have got like 20,000 followers because they do the job they do at that organisation. So anyway, how's the BBC doing in terms of listeners? That's what I started thinking about on the back end of Neil Gaiman. And once I found out who was pushing this agenda, I thought I'd look into it. So I went to Radar. These are the people who monitor all the radio numbers about who's listening to what, for how long and when. And I did my own little chart. Look at that. I did that. This took me forever. You're very welcome. Please hit the like and subscribe. Don't let me down. I do have a button for that, if I can find it. Let's see. Over there. Over there. It's all happening over there. Oh, it's white on white. It doesn't look good, does it? Yeah, so do feel free to like and subscribe for my hard efforts of doing all these numbers for you. It looks like, oh my God, he's going to take me through these numbers. I am, but it's interesting. And I know that we're in minute 26, but you're probably making a cup of tea by now and just listening to me, so it doesn't really matter. But what happened was, so I chose these stations. I selected my own, and I added Asian Network because I've done some previous research as to how much each station costs. You might be wondering why. I'm writing a book, right? Okay, about how to fix the BBC. Okay, full disclosure. So I am doing this for a purpose, not just because I'm a sado. So I was doing this like research, and so here we are. And I thought, right, let's look at the numbers from March 2017 up until March 2020. We don't have any numbers beyond March 2020 because something happened. And we all started having to be in lockdown.
It comes from China.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, Donald. That's a bit racist. So if you don't mind, stop doing that. And I'll stop doing what's his face from The Office. Right, numbers. So here we go. Radio 1 is like you would expect, get the highest numbers possible, but it doesn't. Radio 1 gets in March 2017, got 9 million listeners per week. And then here we are in March 2020, it was down to 8.9 million. It was down 188,000 listeners a week. Down. How does that work? How does that compute to a day? It's down 26,857 listeners a day. That's Radio 1. Radio 2 is down 94,000 listeners a day. Radio 3 is up 13,700 listeners a day. Go, Radio 3. Whatever you're broadcasting, because I don't listen to you, it sounds like you're doing a good job. Radio 4. Boo. Hold on, let's see if I've got a... There we go. Uh-oh. Radio 4 is down 51,286 listeners a day. That's down 3.23%. Isn't this interesting? I'm quoting percentages to you. Right, so I thought that was just all quite interesting. And then I had a look at Asian. World Service is doing well, by the way. Well, it's not doing well. It's kind of steady. It's kind of like a little bit of a steady thing that we need. I like the World Service. Asian Network, right, March 2017 was getting 89,000 listeners a day. Asian Network is a station that's for anyone who's interested in sort of like the Asian community, I guess. March 2020, it was down to 77,571 people per day. It was down 11,429 listeners a day. Down. Asian Network, down per day. 11,429. These are bad numbers. Down 12%, 12.8%. So I had a little look at the Asian Network. Now, the Asian Network, you've got to bear in mind, this is why I brought them up, is that this is a radio station that the BBC is not going to get rid of. It's like firing I don't know. It's like, will Star Wars ever fire the Catherine Kennedy? A woman in charge of Star Wars. It's a fantastic celebration of women are in film industry and as directors. And don't you fire her then? You mustn't fire her. And they won't, and they don't. And they're not going to get rid of the Asian network. They're not going to fire Catherine Kennedy, even though they should, because she's making a hell of a mess of it. So it's dying a horrible death. 11,429 less people watching it a day. All right, okay. So it costs 8 million. Get ready, £8 million a year. That's 50,900 licenses. Right. There's 4.3 million British Asians in the country. Of that 4.3 million, assuming they're the people who'd be interested in something called the Asian Network, and I know that it's open to everybody to listen to, I get it, I understand that, but just assuming that it's being made for people from the British Asian community, of the 4.3 million British Asians in the UK, 77,571 are listening to it a day. That's 1.8% of their own community. They don't want it. British Asians, assuming the BBC thinks they want it, and that only 1.8% of them are listening to it. The BBC won't get rid of it because everyone will come out of the woodwork, and the BBC's terrified of hearing any opinion other than an opinion that says you're doing something good. Especially when I'm talking about race. And do you know what the biggest problem is and where we have these problems, why these problems exist? It's because of this, and get ready for it. Hate crime law. It's so vague. And everyone's terrified of it. If they get rid of Asian Network, is that like a hate crime? Could it be classed as? Could somebody say it is? Let's just quickly read it. In hate crimes and this is the Metropolitan Police explaining to us what it is. In most crimes, it's something the victim has in their possession or control that motivates the offender to commit the crime. With hate crime, it is who the victim is or what the victim appears, that's a really important word, appears to be, that motivates the offender to commit the crime. A hate crime is defined as any criminal offence which is perceived by the victim or any other person to be motivated by hostility or prejudice based on a person's race or perceived race, religion or perceived religion, sexual orientation or perceived sexual orientation, disability or perceived disability, and any crime motivated by hostility or prejudice against a person who's transgender or perceived transgender. What about old people, by the way? What about me? I'm old now. A hate incident is any incident which... So basically what that means is that if somebody says, I perceived it as a hate crime, the police then say, oh, then it is a hate crime. So this thinking has gone across every industry, and it is weaponized deliberately by activists to achieve certain goals. And I can guarantee this is what's causing the problem at the BBC. The lack of clarification around what's a hate crime and the threat of, the threat of axing something that would have bad optics, because you should axe it. We have to get rid of it. It's like we need to integrate, we have to do something that's like a cultural show that's got all different sorts of ethnicities in terms of the music and the news stories, and just do like a mixy thing. Let's do something that's like a mixy thing. Like we're all mixing. Why encourage people to huddle in terms of what they listen to? I don't get it. We've got to start being more together. And that is the opposite of being more together. There. That was 34 minutes of me ranting away, talking about the BBC and the mistakes that it's making. And I don't think it knows what it wants. I think it's scared. I love the BBC. I want it to do well. I want it to reform. I want it to change. And I can't wait until I become the Director General of the BBC, because then it'll be dead simple. Just get rid of a lot of local radio stations, saws. But I don't see the point of having BBC Radio Leeds and BBC Radio Sheffield. It's like, hello, let's just have BBC Yorkshire. How unpopular would that be if I did that? But that's probably what should happen. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it should be the other way around. Let's just get rid of BBC Radio 1. Let's get rid of the license fee. Let's start training people to be excellent in their field and bring people in based on the quality of the character, their skills and experience, because they will come. People will come from all walks of life to that. If you're going to say, no, come here because we know you're afraid to come, or whatever you're saying, stop it. Patronizing, wrong, racist, prejudiced, ageist, xenophobic, transphobic. That's what you're being by having these systems in place that treat people like they're babies. Well, I've actually quite enjoyed doing this because I'm really into it. I'm really into all these numbers and what's happening at the BBC. I don't know about you. I appreciate your time and watching. As ever, if you can support, please do. There it is. Oh, it's down here. Leave a like. That's important. Leave a comment. You got any questions? You probably want to abuse me. I'll delete that. But, subscribe if you can. Sorry, here it is. And don't forget to hit the little bell. These are all things that YouTube like you to do. Obviously, I like you to do it as well because I'm just starting out on YouTube, aren't I? Anyway, my name's Craig. This has been Flooded. And you've been awesome. Take care and goodbye.